I did write some notes. You guys feel free to write more things on it if you want to. So basically, starting from the top, if you notice, obviously the sales price is gone, the days of escrow is gone. So you notice that there's changes. So date prepared is always your contract date. So whenever you're doing any type of addendums or anything else, it asks you the date of the contract. That is the date prepared. Okay, because there's a lot of confusion. I see some agents say, I thought it was acceptance. No, that's your contract date. That's the date that you will always use on any addendums or counters or anything. So this is an offer from obviously your buyer, property to be acquired as, and then again, you would put in the address just like you normally would. And then there's the assessor parcel numbers or number. That's where you would write them. And then again, if you notice right underneath, that's where the verbiage is that the postal mailing address may be different. Buyer is to investigate. And then you can give them an explanation. And like I said, I think there's so much covered in here that they shouldn't call you for the whole transaction, like really, because you've told them everything up front. And then the terms of the purchase are specified below on the following pages. So the buyer and seller are referred to as the parties. Brokers and agents are not parties to this agreement. So what does that mean? And I've told you guys that before. Your commissions are not negotiated on a contract because you are not a party to this contract. So if you guys want additional commission, or if you don't want additional commission, you're willing to give up some of your commission, always attach a CBC. Okay, because again, your seller or their seller, the buyer, has nothing to do with your compensation. Okay. So going on to the next thing, disclosure. So disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship, the Form AD. So here it says buyer's agent is not legally required to give a seller, because before, remember, they used to sign it like 4 times. The seller had to sign it, then the buyer had to sign it, then you needed a confirmation. It was just like craziness. So they eliminate all of that by letting you know buyer agent is not legally required to give the seller and vice versa. Okay, so confirmation of agency. This is another place where agents tend to, make mistakes. They've changed it now to seller's broker and buyer's broker, because before it was selling, so people thought it was the sellers or the listing, it was always confused. So now it's pretty straightforward. Buyer's broker and seller's broker. Now, if I'm the listing agent and Letty comes and writes an offer on my transaction, we are a dual agent. Even though we're not, the same agent, we are in a dual agency. Why? Because our broker is the same. Okay, so always remember that, because a lot of times I see they don't mark dual agency. It is a dual agency, okay? So, but where it says your name, seller's agent, then at that point is where you mark, you're just helping the buyer only, or you're a dual agency as well. Okay, but for the brokerage aspect is the broker. Do you see that? They made it very clear this time, because again, before it was being marked wrong all the time. So always make sure that you're checking that, those boxes. And then, and it says is, if you notice underneath it, check 1, the buyer's agent or both the buyer and seller agent a dual agency. It's like they want to make sure everyone knows who everyone is and who's representing who. So they're trying to make it as clear as possible. More than one brokerage represents seller, buyer. And then again, you can, if there is, so like, let's just say you're working a deal with a broker, an agent from Keller Williams or whatever, then at that point you would attach the ABA form, letting them know who else is, part of this transaction. D, potentially competing buyers and sellers, which is, hasn't changed, the PRBS form. That's still going to be attached. And terms of purchase and allocation of costs. So basically it's just letting them know that this items in the paragraph below, like I said, which is the grid, are going to be reference paragraphs to provide further explanation. This form is 16 pages. The parties are advised to read all 16 pages. Okay, so here's where it's letting them know. And then, like I mentioned here, if you see A, if you have questions about this line, you're going to go to paragraph number 5 and 5B, which is, further into the contract. So paragraph title or contract terms. So this is regarding purchase price. Obviously, you're going to write whatever price, 500,000, If it's all cash, this is where you're going to put all cash. If it's not, you leave it blank. B, close of escrow. Now you can, again, same thing, you can write the name of the days or the number of days or a certain date. That's fine. Expiration of offer, they place this in the very front opposed to in the back, where the signature page was. And it hasn't changed, 3 calendar days after all buyers sign. So it's not, when it's sent or anything else, it's after the buyer sign, or you can change it. Now, just so you know, as a buyer's agent, your offer is active until you decide it's dead. So it doesn't necessarily mean if the, listing agent's taking 10 days, if your buyer's still up for it, your offer hasn't expired. It's still good. The only time that expiration helps you is if for some reason you want to get out of it. Like you want to put an expiration on it because you want it to expire so you can, move on with something else. But if you as a listing or a buyer's agent are hopeful for that property and they're just taking forever, you don't have to submit another offer. Your offer's still good. Okay. Now, initial deposit amount. So here's where you're going to write, the amount of the deposit within 3 business days. So business days obviously is not Saturday, Sunday, or a legal holiday. And now the only, before they had all these different ways to send, you can cashier's check, check, whatever. But now they have, they want you to wire transfer. That's the preferable method. But it can be any acceptable method by escrow because every escrow is different. Some escrows just don't take checks. So you need to know that. And just so you guys know, owner occupied is limited to 3% for the liquidated damages. So just keep that in mind. And then obviously investors, there's no limit. So that way you guys do know that. The other thing is on the increased deposits. Some people do increase deposits because let's just say they have to take money out of a 401k or they're waiting on something. So they don't have the money up front, but they'll have it in 5 or 10 days or whatever. So they use the increased deposit. Now, just so you know, if you do not fill out that DID form, once that deposit is made, you cannot liquidate that money. Like you cannot take them to court for that money. You can't, because they have to be given notice that that money is part of, being deposited just like the initial deposit. So you have to make sure if you're going to try to use that money, like let's just say they cancel at the end and their initial deposit was only 500 and then they gave 10,000. If you didn't serve them that DID form, you cannot touch that money. So make sure that you're aware of that. Okay. And then the loan amounts. It does default to conventional like it did before. But if it is FHA or VA, then obviously you're gonna mark that. The reason they have it like this too now, additional financed amount. So that's like, let's just say, for instance, you have, a Cal half a second or even any type of second or whatever. You now have 2 loan contingencies. And a lot of times buyers say, just remove your initial loan contingency or whatever. So you can get technical with it if you have 2 loans. So you have to be removing both loan contingencies. So they want you to make sure that you're aware of that as well. If it is a VA or FHA offer, then you have to send a list of lender required repairs within 17 days. Or like I said, or you can put the amount if you think the appraiser is going to take a little bit longer to get out there. And then occupancy type, here's where you're going to mark, is it their secondary investment or it's defaults to primary. And then obviously balance of your down payment and then your total purchase price. Hopefully, again, once when we're able to use it, it does kind of what it does now, where you just input it and it kind of does the numbers for you. I'm pretty sure it should be the same. Okay, getting on to page 2. So this here is a seller credit, if any, to buyer. So this is actually nice because before it used to be in different spots, you know. Agents get creative sometimes because on the first page, it would have additional finance terms. They wouldn't put it there, but on the second page, they put it at the bottom, seller to pay blah. And if the agent didn't look there, well, guess what? Yeah, they would sneak it. So everything's in a certain place for a reason now. So there's only one place to put it. Okay, so seller credit, if any, to buyer, again, an amount or a percentage. And then on the additional terms, seller credit to be applied to closing costs or other. So you can say to L&R Roofing, you know, or to, like, let's just say, obviously, you know this ahead of time. Let's just say the agent says, you know, we're going to give new carpet or we're going to do this or that. So then you're going to say, you know, the credit to go to, you know, Costco for their carpet. I don't know, you know, whatever. You can do that ahead of time. And then there is room for additional finance terms in case there's anything that needs to be added. And again, if that's not sufficient, any of these places aren't sufficient for you to type, you're gonna have that you know, that text, that additional text addendum. So H1, verification of cash. So if you notice here, it's all in one place. It's all defaulted to attached because they're assuming you're attaching your proof of funds. They're assuming you're attaching your, you know, that your pre-qualification. And if under additional terms, it says, is it fully underwritten? Is it just a pre-approval? Or is it a pre-qualification? So they're, like I said, they're getting pretty technical. If you don't, or if you're not attaching something, then obviously you're going to write how soon you're going to be sending it in, 3 days or 5 days. And then if you notice, it says intentionally left blank. So I looked a lot like number 1, and then O, it looked like a lot like 0 as well. So on those lines, it's intentionally left blank for a reason. So just so you guys know, that was the reason those were left blank. Final verification of condition. Obviously, you're doing your final walkthrough 5 days prior to close. Assignment request. This is pretty important. This is within 17 days after acceptance, you have to let them know, is it going to be assigned in an LLC, in a trust? Are you adding a spouse, a child, or whatever? You have to let them know because this is, excuse me, super important. And if you go on 23, it gives more detailed details. Now we get into contingencies, our favorite part. So loans, 17 days after acceptance. Now you can change it if you see, you know, or so if you need more time, but I think everybody was lowering it. So they made it 17 or no loan contingency if the contingency is removed. Appraisal contingency based upon appraised value at a minimum price, or remember, this is where you can put, you know, they're willing to pay X amount above appraised value. And then removal of appraisal contingency does not eliminate appraisal cancellation rights in the amendatory clause. That's why people think, and that's what I'm saying, they're making it very clear. If you have an FHA or a buyer and you waive appraisal, it is not waived. They are protected by that disclosure. So just, and then here now it puts it in there so that way everybody knows.
It doesn't exist for FHA.
No.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
But if you have an agent that doesn't know. Yeah.
FHA and VA
And they don't know.
cannot waive appraisal because they're protected by that mandatory clause. Okay,
Even
so
if you send that form over, it doesn't really count because of that.
they have, no, even if you, I mean, you can, okay, so if you sign off on the CR, it's disputable, basically. But a lot of agents don't even make you sign the CR when they open escrow. You just, you know, counter it. That is void. Right? So if you notice here in the contingency, it says removal or waiver of contingency, CR attached. Because now they're putting in here, if you read this, any contingency in this contingency box may be removed or waived by checking the applicable box. So but you definitely want to attach the CR because they can say, I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I wasn't sure. But if you're doing it twice, you know what you're doing. You see what I'm saying? But obviously it's for conventional. more, unless it's loan, they can remove loan, but just not appraisal. And informational or investigation of property, again, 17 days for them to do all of their inspections. Informational access to property. Again, buyer has a right to access the property for informational purposes. It's not a contingency. It does not create cancellation rights. It's just so that way, if they need to get access, it's just letting the seller know they have the right to come and go for 17 days. Review.
We have the right to access the property or either or?
It's either or,
Okay.
yeah. Review of seller documents, so 17 days after acceptance or 5 days after receipt. I know this is a big one too. A lot of times agents are like, here, I just sent it to you. Now give me your contingency. No, I have 5 days. So, I mean, you want to get technical, this is getting technical. So that hasn't changed, which is good. And here, like I said, it just spells it out so much clearer. Same thing with the title report, 17 days, otherwise 5 days, whichever's later. Common interest disclosures, CC&Rs, anything like that. Again, 17 days, 5 days. Review of leased or liened items. So same thing, you have to know, within 17 days, so you can review it, make sure that you're okay with whatever you're either being, having to take over, or whether it's paid for, you still want to, approve of it. Sale of buyer's property, that's going to attach the COP, which hasn't changed. Time of possession. So if you notice, now it says upon recordation for possession, where before it would say at the close of escrow. So now they changed it to upon recordation because they wanted it to match the law, because they are now the legal owner. Because you had, like I said, it's pretty interesting, because we got to listen to the reasons why they changed some of these things. Certain agents believe, or would tell their clients, I don't know that they would believe, but they would tell their clients, you get the keys 2 weeks after, that's when the house is yours. So they did not think that they were the true owners. But if a home burns down a minute after it records, it's their home. So they want them to know that they're the legal owner at that point, and them allowing the other parties to stay is optional, and whatever the, possible consequences, could be. So again, you're going to attach, you can also attach the tenant occupied property addendum. And then it's really nice here, because it goes over seller occupied or vacant units. It tells you if they're going to stay after close of escrow for 29 days or fewer, this is the form they need. If they're going to stay for more than 30 days, then there's a different form they need. Okay, so that's important. You got to make sure that you have the right forms completed, because it's the SIP and then the RLAS. Okay, so there's a difference to make sure you're doing that. And then the TOPA is more thorough, and it replaces the TIP. Okay, so the TIP no longer will exist after the first.
If we recorded today, I could give keys to my buyer by today.
It's not, yeah, it's whatever you negotiate. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. If it records at 2 p.m., they can get the keys at 2 p.m. Yeah.
The pre-agreement agreement, like they need 3 days after close of escrow.
Well, then that's different. Yeah.
That's still standing.
Yes. But the old thing said at the close of escrow at 6 p.m. That's what it said before. So automatically it was 6 p.m. Now it's saying upon recordation or 6 p.m. They give you the option. So, so just always leave it upon recordation unless you have an SIP in place. Then that obviously will supersede because they agreed. Seller delivery of documents, 7 days after acceptance. So this is why it's super important. And then as listing agents, and even as buyer's agents, because I like to do my own termite inspections, even if the seller did theirs. But as a listing agent, the day you go and you sign that listing agreement, you should be ordering termite, you should be ordering prelim, you should be ordering NHD, you should order it right then and there. Termites are free. You don't spend anything. They go out there for free, but it's important to know why, because you have to deliver documents so fast that if I don't like to negotiate backwards. I like to know what I'm negotiating. So if my seller's going to have $5,000 worth of termite work, wouldn't you want to tell them ahead of time or let them prepare, maybe find a better pricing handyman to do it, opposed to being under the gun and having no choice but to do, it a certain way. So always, try to do that as early as possible, or maybe there's a lien on the prelim, have them fill out that SI as soon as possible, because it takes time sometimes to get, the demands from some of these places, or, whatever it is that could be on there, if there's any liens or anything that's affecting it. Your seller might not even sell, they might say, shoot, I didn't even know that lien existed. Forget about it. I can't afford to sell. And then now you just wasted, and the worst part about it is you're in contract. So if you didn't help your seller and do that up front, they signed a legal contract. It's not the buyer's problem. So, always make sure, you're doing that ahead of time. And that includes our avids. I know our avids are a pain, to do. But make sure that you're doing those so that way, because if you don't do it till the end, guess what? They don't have to remove their contingency, because that is, they're required to receive that. Again, 5 days, it adds 5 days. So sign and return escrow instructions. Now they put that on here as 5 days. So make sure that you're getting them to sign those escrow instructions and return within 5 days. Time to pay for ordering documents, the HOA, 3 days. Install smoke detectors. And this is, again, when you're doing a walkthrough of your client's home, do your smoke detectors work? Do your carbon monoxide detectors work? Is your water heater brace? These are things that we have to educate our sellers. If they're not, then you need to get it done, because if not, there's a penalty.
Is it only based on those 3 things when it comes to the inspection fee?
Yes, because those are the things that are required. I mean, there could be, I know like in LA, there's
And then sometimes.
yeah, but it is, yeah. Yeah, but these are the 3 that will penalize a seller because they're obvious. If you see that, what I usually tell my clients, if I see the paint, peeling, I'll tell them, if you're not going to take an FHA offer, you're good. But if you're going to go with an FHA offer, this is not going to be acceptable. So again, just let them know, and then they can make that decision, on what's best to do at that point. But again, you're letting them know. And then, yeah. Yes. That is if for whatever reason, like let's say they're a trust, it's in a trust. So the house is not in their name. So we don't know who truly is authorized to sell the home. So that's yeah. So that's just proving.
And then do you know, like, how we're gonna get penalized for?
For what, the inspection fee?
No, it's like for them, yeah, like if they don't have those things done.
It's about $150. It's whatever the appraiser charges the buyer. The invoice will go to escrow to the seller. But it's about $150. That's usually where it is. Yeah. And for not listening, it's $200 out made to me. Just kidding. Okay, so items included and excluded. So again, this is, they made it for today's homes, because there's so much, it was really hard to write everything in those small little areas. So what's being left, what isn't being left, the video doorbells. I don't know how many times people argue over that stuff.
Yeah.
It gets pretty crazy. We've had people change out, Katie, right? Change out thermostats, have done stuff. So again, when you're walking with your client or you're doing, that's the purpose of your Avid. Take pictures. I don't know if you guys do your Avid through Glide. If you don't, you have to. It's just so super easy. Yeah, bathroom mirrors. Why? Because a lot of people take them because, people go to Home Goods or whatever, Brenda, and swap out their mirrors, right?
I did not swap out the mirror, but I do shop at home.
No. No, you change your mirrors
Yes, I
to,
Yeah.
instead of the square, you put nice mirrors. Yeah.
What if the seller takes some of these things that are not in
if they're not marked on here, that's why you have to mark them, and then they have to agree. If they take them and you go, then you have to go to small claims. I mean, but I mean, you can try to talk to the agent. We had one, and Katie knows that they took the thermostat and we called the agent. We're like, and so she called her seller and they put it back. So,
But if in your leasing, you have all those exclusions and inclusions, I mean, you still have to.
what do you mean? And your listing?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they don't get a copy of your listing agreement.
But the agent does when. The MLS.
But this is a separate contract. The listing agreement is the contract.
In your MLS listing, you have the.
Oh, no, that does not, this supersedes the MLS. Yeah, just because it says it in there does not mean anything. So don't take that for granted.
Okay, so then so that doesn't stand. I remember being in a contract and there was no form that said there was a replacement of property for the seller. But it was listed on the MLS. And when I checked with management, they said that.
No,
Good enough.
not true. It's not in the contract. It's not part of the contract. How did your buyer agree to that? No, that's not justified. No, I don't agree with that.
So-
Because it says in the contract, any previous, whether verbal, whether whatever, what's in this agreement is what it is. If it's not in here, does not exist. And I actually want a lawsuit for that because of that verbiage. So I do not agree with that. They have to attach, you always, that's why I remember I told you to attach the salary replacement property, because
A lot of
there's,
agents don't do, a lot of
and
agents
they
don't
need
do.
to, because you have to, they don't, then you do it because it protects your buyer on the timeframes. Otherwise, it's open-ended. So you don't know what you're really in. You see what I'm saying? So you want to attach that, the SPRP or whatever it is. Yeah. So just remember, if it's not in the contract, it does not exist. So here again, mark everything. There's additional room to add like water features. Maybe there's other things. Pool equipment. I always write pool equipment when there's a pool because you never know. People are crazy. People are crazy. Fridge in their garage if you want that too, whatever it is that you want, just make sure you're putting everything in there. And don't forget to include anything excluded. So whatever you don't want them to leave, like they're like, oh, we're gonna leave this and that. No, I don't want your junk. Do not leave it. So make sure, yeah. They're like, you can have the shed, it's falling apart. You're like, no, take it, please. Yeah. So that's actually a good part because you can actually sit there and have those conversations with your clients because they probably don't even think about it. If so here it gives them more of an opportunity to really think about it. And not only that, at the end, when they're like, well, I thought it was included. Wait a minute, they're not going to say that anymore because you actually had that conversation. Yeah.
You can even use this like with the sellers, right? If
Oh,
you're
yeah.
Going over it, saying, these are the things they can ask for. So let's go.
True. Mhm.
But the list of items, for example, the refrigerator or the washer, these lists are not automatically have to be left in there.
No. They have to be check marked
Okay,
and then agreed. Otherwise, it'll be countered.
because I thought automatically they have to be the stove.
Oh, no.
Did the listing agreement change to reflect some of this or no?
Not yet. That's right next. But not yet.
I thought before you can take it out, fix program.
You can't?
I thought you couldn't.
Unless it was there.
It's 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
What's the question?
That she thought that you couldn't take anything that wasn't affixed to the
That was
property.
fixed.
That was affixed. You can if you disclose.
Yeah.
So like, for instance, when I was taking a listing, she says, I'm taking my 2 chandeliers. I'm not leaving these. I'll replace them. So I always try to tell them, do it before I do photos. But if they can't, then it goes into the listing. But not only does it go into the listing, it goes into my counter. Do you see what I'm saying? Because doesn't mean that it could, like I said, it could be grounds for, well, they didn't disclose it here, I wasn't aware, whatever. So, that's why always put it, just so that way they signed it and yeah, they know that it's not gonna be there. Yeah. And when you have a seller who has like a really nice home, let me see, like if you have a seller who has like a super nice house and they have like so much stuff, that you're like, shoot, like there's just a lot to, let me see if I can do this real quick.
I had an issue with the barbecue, they have a nice barbecue area and they had just installed a brand new barbecue. And so the buyers went in and they saw that barbecue, they really loved it. And it was a whole like, counter, everything with the sink, the whole bit. That barbecue was new. And so they saw it. And then when they did the walkthrough, the seller had switched out that barbecue. He put another one in there, but he switched out that barbecue that they had originally installed when they first, and they remembered it because the husband was like, this is my barbecue right here. Because it was a built-in barbecue area.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first thing that seller said is like, that barbecue that was here is gone. And so that was a big issue.
Yeah. So this is what I had one of my sellers do, because I'm telling you, she had so much stuff. So she put inside included because she had so many upgrades and so many stuff, like a lot of things. So she wrote everything that's included inside, everything that's included in the backyard. And then she put itemized options for sale, in-house options. Okay, so what I did was I saved this as a PDF and I attached it into the supplements section of the MLS. So that way they could share it with their clients. And then when the offer was accepted, I included it in my DocuSign as part of the contract. Because that way there's no misunderstanding, or I thought this was staying, I thought that was staying, because I'm telling you, they had so many things. It wasn't just one or two nice things. It was a lot. And so I didn't want there was a lot of like surround sound and expensive TVs all over the place. Like, so, and like high-end barbecue and just all that stuff. So instead of me typing it up and doing this, I just told her, you know what? You have so much stuff. You know your home better than I do. Send me a list. That way, God forbid something's wrong. Guess what? She did it. I didn't. So, so that's another, option as well. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. And then we'll get back into this. Okay. So then now getting into and you know what, just so you guys know, if ever in doubt, it's better to over disclose than under, if ever in doubt, it's just better. So here we are on item description and who pays for what. So these are the allocation of costs. So natural hazard zone disclosure, obviously that hasn't changed. Seller, you can put the company, in there if you guys, if there's a company that you favor. And then the next line, termite, if you notice, it just says report. There's no room for clearance. And so that's not where it's put at this, in this particular area. They might change it. I don't know, because they're still doing, some changes. You can just, I put it down at the bottom. And then smoke alarms, the detectors, the water heater and bracing, seller, want to make sure that's there. The Q5 and Q6, that's the area that Rod always says, do not agree to that. And that's where there's a lot of retrofit inspections and reports and all kinds of actions and corrective work that you put your seller or buyer at risk by selecting those. So it's better to negotiate that once, if you do an inspection and something's needed. So
the actual contract has that crossed out like that, or?
no, I did that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Leave it blank. Yeah.
Whether you're represented by.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I usually put seller.
I'm sorry?
I usually mark seller.
Yeah, well, they're gonna counter you out.
Sometimes they forget.
Yeah, sometimes they do forget, but yeah. Yeah. And so then the escrow fees, again, now they have each to pay their own. Thank goodness. So that's in there, just mark it, and then seller's choice or, the company you choose. Owner's title insurance policy, again, and they put the buyer's lender, they've made that on there, put buyer, it's defaulted to buyer, because a lot of times buyers don't realize that they have a policy to pay as well. So there's no negotiating that, buyers have to pay that. County transfer taxes and city taxes, I mean, whoever, you negotiate, you mark whoever, usually seller. HOA for prepping disclosures, it's fixed by law, so again, you can't change it. Seller, HOA certification fee, buyer, the lender usually requests that, so that way they can see if it's a property they can loan on, because some HOAs they can't. The HOA transfer fees, just so you guys know, what they did is, unless otherwise agreed. So here, if they mark seller's gonna pay, then the seller pays, but if there's nothing marked here, because a lot of times buyers or agents, I should say, buyers agents would not mark HOA because they forgot it was in an HOA. Or they didn't realize it was in an HOA. So it'll default, if it's not marked, seller will pay for any move out fees and buyer will pay for any move in fees. So, and they're billed separate. So that would be the default unless you negotiate it here. Private transfer fees, if there's any, and then obviously additional fees or costs. This could be your admin, your TC, any fees that you charge, put it there. And then here's where you can put your section 1 termite fees for seller to pay.
These boxes on additional terms, are they left to be blank?
Yes. Yeah, there's nothing that applies to there. You're not supposed to type in there either. You have to attach the text overflow form. Yeah, I didn't see.
What about, because I always type in other terms, I shouldn't then, where would we disclose if, like, I'm related to the buyer or the agent is the buyer?
Right, other terms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But does it go here or is it part of one of 16 pages?
No, everything that needs to get written in gets written in here. Everything else is explanation to this part.
Okay.
So there's really not, the 4th page does have some check boxes, but if you look, everything else, there's nowhere to write. It's all verbiage. It's just a reference. Yep. Notice to perform is, you can't change it unless you do an addendum, but notice to perform is 2 days before you can change it, or you can, make it. It said or an amount of days. You can't do that anymore. They want everything to be in these first 4 pages that are marked. You can, but not on the contrary. You have to add, or you can put on additional terms. Notice to perform to be, notice to be 1 day opposed to.
So where does it show?
It's on the very back page. One of the pages back here. Right here, notice to perform. So here's your notice to perform. Down here, there's 3.
Does it give a standard 2 days?
It's 2 days and 3 days for demand to close escrow. Same, it hasn't changed. But there used to be on the other one where it said 2 days, or you can make it 1 day. So you want that, if you're the listing agent, you would want 1 day. So here's the notice to buyer to perform, and then it says 2 days. You see that? It doesn't allow you to change, because they don't want you to change anything after those first pages. So, but if that's important, then you can, write it in under other terms. The last thing on page 3 is the home warranty plan. So this is actually a good change too. Now, the buyer side orders it. Buyers will always order their own home warranty. Okay, sellers, escrow will not order no more. Okay. Yes. So now all you're basically asking is for the amount that you want as a credit. You're not asking for AC, for a pool, for this part, for this or that. That's why the buyer's agent talks to the buyer, so they will order whatever's necessary. You don't need an addendum because now this amount doesn't cover it, and this and that and all this up. You don't do that anymore. They're trying to eliminate it. So basically, if it's your buyer, Alia, and they want a $800 home warranty, but the seller's only willing to pay 600, then all that's gonna happen is there's gonna be 600 credit on their HUD or on their estimate, and your agent's gonna pay, and then they're gonna say, who's paying the difference, buyer or you, or whatever. But you order if they want, you know, the platinum package with all the bells and whistles or whatever. Before, you know how they would say, oh, you didn't mark that you wanted this, so we're not ordering that. No, that's not.
But is it still, seller's choice of who the company is, or?
It's usually if you write it in here,
Right.
it's just
And you
really,
still make counter, but
It's
sometimes the
that-
counters you specify your services, as a leasing agent, you can still fill it out. That's what-
yeah, oh yeah, it's everything's negotiable. So that doesn't change. But I mean, why would they, you know, care? But everyone's different. So other terms, and then again, that's where you would write anything else. And then again, if it goes beyond those few lines, it's gonna add another addendum. Okay,
If they close on a property with FHA, do they have to leave this bill by?
on FHA, yes. Yes.
On FHA, still not required anymore.
You know what? It's up to the appraiser.
Okay.
It really is an appraiser, but I usually tell my clients just to leave it.
On FHA and VA.
Yeah, on FHA and VA. Yeah, so. It just, yeah, you don't want them to
As
come
long
back
as
out
the
there.
appraiser requires it.
Mhm. I had appraiser, FHA appraiser require closet doors, and I had others that don't. So it's just, it's the appraiser, you know, if they're,
Yeah, across the door, closet on the bedroom, they said it's not even, considered a bed, used to be, if he doesn't have a, closet, it's not a bedroom, right? But it says, if he doesn't have a closet, it's still a bedroom. Right?
it's all the appraiser, I'm telling you, they are all different. Me and Juana met an appraiser at a property, same thing. It's just they're telling us something and we're like, hey, that's not what we're used to, but okay, like everybody just is different. So,
To recap on the dual agency, if you're representing the seller, I'm representing the buyer, we're both in the same brokerage, it's still considered dual?
yeah, because we have the same broker. So if you notice where it says is the broker of, and then it's gonna be dual agency, but then where your name goes seller's agent, you're gonna say, you're just representing, you know, like, so here it says seller's brokerage firm. So seller is, oh, actually, hold on a second. Did they change it? Maybe I'm reading it wrong. Oh, no, that's right. Vega. I was like, wait, why does it look different? Okay. So seller's brokerage firm would be Remax Champions. So that license number is gonna match the same license number as the buyer's brokerage firm. So that's dual, okay? But where seller's agent is, that's where you're gonna put the seller's agent, you're the salesperson or the broker associate, and you're not both, you're not dual agent on that one. You're just gonna mark the seller's agent or the buyer's agent. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Do you guys have any other questions for, like I said, I don't want to overload you. It's not, I mean, do you guys, I mean, have any questions or anything at all? Does something not make sense? No?
It all looks pretty self-explanatory.
Until-
Yeah. Yeah, they're saying that it's supposed to come out on the 14th. That's what they're saying. So I really recommend, I'm gonna go in there too, you know, template it as as best as possible. See if any additional other changes have been made.
Is that the 14th of this month?
No, this month.
This month.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not affect, I mean, you don't have to use it till the 1st. Okay, so,
So I don't know if, you were not there last week, Castro, but Ron was talking about, when you have multiple offers that if you counter them back, and I don't know if this is pertaining to this or not, but I didn't understand what he said by that. That you have the right, you can ask the listing agent for that multiple counter previous highest offer.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
okay, no, so that, yeah, that's something completely different. So that's, and I don't really see that happening anymore because I
I
think
wasn't
we're,
sure if that was part of this, like.
you make it part of it. So
Okay.
it's an additional term.
Thank you.
So, yes, yeah. And I think Gabby was really good with her escalations. She would write those in a lot. And yes, they have to prove to you and show you their highest offer. So that way you can show it to your client.
So they were saying in the class that once the new form comes out, you won't be able to use the old form.
Okay,
So get used to this one, because if it does come out on the
okay.
14th, you won't have access to use the
I
old.
think.
Oh,
I
okay,
think it's as of,
okay.
Like January something.
Yeah, it keeps
So hopefully it won't come out.
changing.
I just had a question. I remember that they said we have to be very careful when we say our client's gonna pay $20,000 more. What I don't understand is, like, you gotta be careful because they're not just talking about, they're talking about the height. So if the property is 450 and it's 650, then you're willing to pay 20 grand over, that's 650.
Yeah, that's on the escalation clause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're gonna have to let us know, right?
Oh, yeah, they have to let you know. It's not automatic. Yeah, yeah.
What?
Because you don't know, because what if your client doesn't qualify for 200,000 more? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, no, they'll have to let you know, like, this is where we're at. If, do you want to enforce your escalation? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but we got 3 appraisals back yesterday. One of them's in escrow 705. We got it back at 730. We got another one we're in escrow for 460 and we got 475. All our escrows are coming in above all of our escrows, all of our appraisals.
They don't want to fight with it.
Yeah.
They'd rather do it.
So,
For you guys.
yeah, so it's been, so thankfully, they've all been coming in good, but I think a lot of it is, I usually do a really detailed report to the appraiser and they probably don't want to hear from me after that. But I usually show them because a lot of times they're not familiar with the area, you guys. You have to understand that. Don't wish, pray, and hope that it's going to come back. You definitely have to contact them. And like I said, on one of the last ones that came in from 705 to 730, if I wouldn't have given her the comps, because there was comps in that same community that were a lot less, and I explained to her why they weren't comparable to this property, she would have used those and it wouldn't even have came in at value.
Because the appraisals don't have the access to MLS, right?
They
Yeah,
do.
they
I think they do.
They do.
I think they do. But they also do. They don't go off MLS because the MLS could be fudged up. So they have to go off of the actual, like a county recording site to see the actual docket number, that it was recorded. So that the transfer actually took place. So does anyone have any other questions?
I did a pass a few days ago, in like 50,000. And the guy, the professor or the teacher mentioned that if their plates are cheap, of a contract.
Everybody's different about that. I've never, yeah, you have to disclose it. So, because, yeah, because whatever's not on here is not required to get paid. They can't pay you under the table. And
The verbiage, what you use.
yeah,
He was basically saying, I was in the same class, I was sharing that with you yesterday, he's basically saying we cannot pass on that fee to our, clients.
that's not true.
And I was just like, I didn't.
You
hear
remember,
that.
Ron, an invoice that says administrative negotiable something commission. But he's the one that did that invoice. You could use that verbiage on that.
Yeah.
You could put admin, have the buyer sign it. simple as.
Yeah, that's why we always named it admin, not TC. Yeah. And you know what? A lot of these trainings, I'm telling you, because I listened in on a few here and there. A lot of the teachers, or the people who are teaching it, number one, aren't active. They're not selling real estate. They're not out there. Number two, they're giving you their opinion, which we don't want it. Like, you know, if this is like real, like, you know, what's happening. Yeah. So you know, like I said, I get it. I appreciate it, but I heard some too, and I turned it on like, yeah, no, this is not gonna be, you know, I don't want to learn from this, you know, that type of person, but,
If they didn't want anything included on the.
Yeah.
contract, we wouldn't have a blank spot.
yeah. No, like, I think Jackie's correct. Just putting the right verbiage is what matters. But we haven't had any issues. The escrows pay them out and yeah, I think it's just a personal, he's not a TC, that's why. If he was a TC, he'd be like, make sure you put my fee in there because I want to get paid. Right? Right? Yeah, keep it the same way. So, let me show you guys this. I'm going
I put
to,
it under admin and I explained to my buyers what it is. And then sellers
Let me
have just gone with it. I just tell them that I cover their, you know, fees and it covers the transaction coordinator. That's something that- that's
You're funny.
everything that you're signing.
so just so you guys know, oh shoot. Someone was spamming me. Oh, shoot. So just so you guys know, this is what I was mentioning. So today was just basically like the general overview, but I think, you know, there was a lot of good information. The next one, like I said, we could do it via Zoom, whichever you prefer. It's gonna go over all of the revised addendums, because there is a lot of addendums that have been revised. So we're just gonna go in a little bit further.
So the RPA changed, right? What about the other one, like the?
Listing it,
Language purchase agreement?
there's no more probate purchase agreement. There's no more,
Oh, really?
no, there's only addendums now. So that's what I'm saying. There's the addendums. So there's only one purchase agreement. Manufactured, nope,
Really?
gone. They're gone.
Okay.
Even commercial.
So we use this for a mobile home?
Yes, yeah, so now, yeah, use it. So we're gonna go over that next. And then the following one would be regarding the new definitions. They've added a lot of new definitions, which I think are important. The new delivery framework, and this is like I was telling you, the delivery is now the acceptance date. It's no longer when they, you know, let's say they receive you send them over the executed contract, right? And then they say, oh, we didn't initial until 3 days after or whatever. That's the date we want to go off of. That doesn't exist anymore. So it's the date of delivery. So we'll go over that. I don't want to get too far ahead. So then, and then, like I said, the fourth one will be closing escrow title assignments, lease and liens and cancellations. So there's a lot of information, and I just think it's better to break it down. So that way you guys, so, huh?
I said I'm gonna be a TC for 3 months. so
I know. So thank you guys. If you guys are hungry, there's food outside, okay? If you guys are hungry, thank you guys so much.